The Forgotten Carnival. The wind whispered tales of the Forgotten Carnival for as long as I could remember. Nestled deep in the woods, its existence was shrouded in mystery, a dark enigma that tantalized the curious. They said it only opened its gates once every decade, on the night of a blood moon. That night had finally arrived, and I couldn't resist the pull any longer. The moon cast an eerie crimson glow as I ventured into the desolate woods. The air grew colder with every step, and the rustling leaves seemed to murmur warnings. Soon the trees gave way to an overgrown path, and the first flicker of carnival lights pierced the darkness. It was a haunting sight, like a ghost from a forgotten era. The entrance beckoned me forward, its creaky gates swinging open with an unsettling groan. A chill swept through me as I entered. The air was thick with the scent of nostalgia and decay, a strange mix of cotton candy and rotting wood. The carnival grounds were an unsettling fusion of the fantastical and the grotesque. Broken rides stood like skeletal remains, their once vibrant colors faded and peeling. Twisted circus tents loomed in the shadows, their tattered banners promising delights and horrors beyond imagination. I was not alone. Others had been drawn here too. Their faces were etched with curiosity and trepidation as they wandered through the nightmarish playground. I couldn't help but wonder why we were all lured to this forsaken place. The attractions were both mesmerizing and macabre. A haunted carousel spun slowly, its ghostly horses carrying spectral riders who reached out with skeletal hands. A funhouse beckoned with its crooked mirrors, each reflection revealing a grotesque transformation of the self. But it was the Ferris wheel that captured my attention. Its rusted frame creaked and groaned as it rotated, revealing a macabre panorama. Each car held a ghastly tableau of suffering and despair. I shuddered as I glimpsed scenes of agony, trapped souls forever tormented in their twisted cages. As I ventured deeper into the carnival, I realized that the revelers around me were no longer human. Their faces contorted into grotesque masks, and their laughter morphed into unsettling cacophony. They moved in unnatural, disjointed ways, their eyes devoid of humanity. The night wore on, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the carnival itself was alive. It whispered to me, its voice a seductive melody that echoed in the darkest corners of my mind. It promised secrets and revelations, but I knew those promises came with a price. The climax came when I stumbled upon the big top, its faded red and white stripes billowing in the night breeze. Inside, a sinister spectacle awaited. A grotesque ringmaster, his grin impossibly wide, presided over a nightmarish circus of horrors. I watched in horror as performers danced on the edge of madness, contorting their bodies into impossible shapes and swallowing swords that glowed with malevolent energy. The audience, no longer human, cheered with unholy fervor. The carnival's secrets began to unravel before me, a horrifying truth that chilled me to my core. It was a place of nightmares, a feeding ground for malevolent forces that reveled in our fear and suffering. Desperation gripped me as I realized the carnival would never release its captives willingly. With every ounce of strength left, I turned and ran, the echoes of haunting laughter and torment following me into the night. I stumbled back into the woods, the carnival's lights fading behind me. The moon had moved higher in the sky, and the crimson hue had waned. I was free, but the memories of that nightmarish place would haunt my dreams forever. The Forgotten Carnival had exacted its toll, leaving me with a chilling reminder that some mysteries were never meant to be unraveled. The Time Loop Nightmare. It was supposed to be a weekend of adventure and camaraderie, a camping trip deep into the heart of the woods with my closest friends. Little did we know that our escapade would lead us into a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. The forest was dense, and the air held a crisp chill as we pitched our tents in a small clearing. Our laughter filled the air, punctuated by the crackling of the campfire and the distant rustling of leaves. It was the perfect setting for a memorable getaway. As night descended upon us, we gathered around the fire, sharing stories and toasting marshmallows. The full moon bathed the woods in a silvery glow, and it was then that I noticed an unusual object half buried in the earth. It was an ornate, ancient-looking amulet, adorned with strange symbols and seemingly untouched by time. Curiosity piqued. I dug it out and held it up for my friends to see. They gathered around, their faces a mix of intrigue and unease. None of us knew what it was, but something about it felt unsettlingly magnetic. We decided to keep it as a memento of our adventure. As the night wore on, we settled into our tents, unaware of the horror that awaited us. I awoke to the sound of distant whispers and an eerie, haunting melody that seemed to emanate from the amulet itself. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, casting an eerie light that danced across the fabric of my tent. I emerged from my tent to find my friends gathered around the fire, their faces etched with confusion. It was then that we realized something was terribly wrong. The fire was still crackling, the moon still hung high in the sky, and the amulet lay at the center of it all, unchanged. We tried to make sense of the situation, but the truth became undeniable. Time had looped back to the moment we discovered the amulet, and we were trapped in an endless cycle. Our screams of disbelief were met with echoes that reverberated through the woods. Each iteration of the night brought a new level of horror. We watched helplessly as our actions played out exactly as before, as if we were puppets in a malevolent puppeteer's hands. The amulet held us in its grip, forcing us to relive the same terrifying night over and over. The forest, once serene and inviting, had transformed into a nightmarish labyrinth. The whispers grew louder, the melody more sinister, and our sanity began to fray. We knew that if we didn't break free soon, we would be trapped in this time loop for eternity. Desperation led us to investigate the amulet more closely. We deciphered its ancient symbols and uncovered a dark ritual, a means to siphon our souls into the inescapable cycle. The amulet was a conduit for an ancient, malevolent force that hungered for our suffering. With every loop, we pieced together the ritual's components, each iteration bringing us closer to our salvation. It was a race against time as we navigated the horrors of the night, trying to outsmart the amulet's curse. Finally, on what felt like the 1,000th loop, we executed a plan to disrupt the ritual. The amulet shattered, its malevolent energy dispersing into the night like a dissipating storm. Time itself seemed to pause for a moment before resuming its natural course. We found ourselves back in the clearing, the forest no longer haunted by the echoes of our torment. The amulet, now in pieces, lay scattered in the dirt. We knew that we had broken free, but the scars of our ordeal remained. As we packed up and left the woods, I couldn't help but glance back at the amulet one last time. It was a reminder that some relics should remain forgotten, their secrets left undisturbed in the darkness. We had escaped the time loop nightmare, but the memory of that cursed amulet would haunt us forever.